What keeps entrepreneurs from connecting and collaborating is trust. If you've never collaborated and saw the benefits of collaboration, then you don't know that you need to. If there is individuals who have strengths that you don't have, and you complement each other, you have those thought partners, those accountability partners that you really can work with well together, the outcome is just amazing. I have been in 5 collaboration books. One of the benefits for me is the time piece, because when you're writing your own book, it does take time. Then secondly, you are opened up to so many more people than you would ever do by yourself. Just the benefit of expanding your reach and your circle is also a benefit in collaboration. I really feel that every entrepreneur needs a book because it helps validate what you're doing. You do the work, you are out there making money off of what you're doing. I like to know what it is that you're doing as an entrepreneur. Tell us your story. Everyone has a story, which is why I highlight entrepreneurs in the Grind Entrepreneur Network, because I am giving them a question of the day. They are detailing their questions and their responses, and you're getting to know who that entrepreneur is. And so with a book, you're able to do that. Your audience, your clients, your customers, they're able to see who you are as a person and not just as that CEO or that boss that you are of your business. The mission of the Grind Entrepreneur Network is really quite simple. It is to support, connect, develop, and highlight entrepreneurs. The network is just amazing, and so I'm really so glad for that, because when I need services done, I go to my network to see who I can invest in. You know, I really want to do something to help support and highlight entrepreneurs who are on their grind, and that's really how the Grind Entrepreneur Network was born. So Perfect Time SHP, that is really a passion. That is a coaching and consulting firm, and I really just focus on leadership development. I look at those career professionals as well as entrepreneurs. If you are in need of a leadership development coach, if you just need some steps, some guidance, some how-tos on getting your entrepreneur journey started, if you want to up-level your career, certainly reach out to me. Also, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to connect with others that are all across the United States and beyond, and also be highlighted and featured in our Grind Entrepreneur Network Spotlight each month, definitely reach out to SharonHporter.com, and I would love to connect and collaborate with you so that we can definitely support your efforts and make sure that you get the results that you want in your business. Hello everyone, I am Dr. Sharon. This is the new segment for the I Am Dr. Sharon show, Education First. I am so excited. Joining me are my wonderful new co-hosts. I have Mr. Desmond Williams. I have Ms. Kelisa Wing, Dr. Addis, and Dr. Essie McKoy. They are going to do the honors of introducing themselves and also telling you a little bit about their platform. Desmond, please kick it off for us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Desmond Williams. I am a career educator based here in the Washington, D.C. area, and my work is around equity and making appropriate spaces for Black boys to learn and thrive and be their complete selves.
Awesome. And Kelisa, please introduce yourself.
My name is Kelisa Wing. I am a 12-year educator. I've been an assistant principal, and a teacher. I've even been a secretary one time. But now I'm a professional development specialist in the Alexandria, Virginia area. I've been a 2017 State Teacher of the Year, and I'm an author of the Dismantling the School to Prison Pipeline, and also another book called Weeds and Seeds. And my platform is basically about dismantling disparate systems so that all students can have an opportunity to learn, achieve, and succeed, and social justice.
Awesome. Dr. Addis.
Hello, I'm Anna Addis, principal at Cesar Chavez Dual Spanish Immersion School here in Maryland. My interest lies in developing teacher leaders so that they can be their best selves and serve our very diverse community in the area, and specializing in educating children of color.
Dr. McKoy.
Good morning. I am Dr. Essie McKoy, the CEO, President, and founder of Dr. Essie Speaks, LLC, educational consulting company. And definitely, currently, I am at George Mason University working in higher education. Just released a book, September 2018, The Heart of School Transformation, my journey into transforming urban schools. And that is my interest. I'm really going into schools and transforming them, and now sharing that knowledge with other educators and leaders, and focusing on teacher and leadership development. Glad to be here today. Thank you.
Guys, you are in for a treat. Today and every month, this is a new monthly segment that we will be discussing hot button topics, all education, everything education. Some things we'll agree on, some things we will not. And we definitely will ask you to chime in with your opinions as well, because it's all about you and education. If you are a parent, if you are an educator, if you are just a member of the community, this is for you. So when we come back, we will kick off our first topic with Mr. Desmond Williams, and it's going to be exciting. You don't want to miss it. So we'll be right back. What keeps entrepreneurs from connecting and collaborating is trust. If you've never collaborated and saw the benefits of collaboration, then you don't know that you need to. If there is individuals who have strengths that you don't have, and you complement each other, you have those thought partners, those accountability partners that you really can work with well together, the outcome is just amazing. I have been in 5 collaboration books. One of the benefits for me is the time piece, because when you're writing your own book, it does take time. Then secondly, you are opened up to so many more people than you would ever do by yourself. Just the benefit of expanding your reach and your circle is also a benefit in collaboration. I really feel that every entrepreneur needs a book because it helps validate what you're doing. You do the work, you are out there making money off of what you're doing. I like to know what it is that you're doing as an entrepreneur. Tell us your story. Everyone has a story, which is why I highlight entrepreneurs in the Grind Entrepreneur Network, because I am giving them a question of the day. They are detailing their questions and their responses, and you're getting to know who that entrepreneur is. And so with a book, you're able to do that. Your audience, your clients, your customers, they're able to see who you are as a person and not just as that CEO or that boss that you are of your business. The mission of the Grind Entrepreneur Network is really quite simple. It is to support, connect, develop, and highlight entrepreneurs. The network is just amazing. And so I'm really so glad for that, because when I need services done, I go to my network to see who I can invest in. You know, I really want to do something to help support and highlight entrepreneurs who are on their grind. And that's really how the Grind Entrepreneur Network was born. So Perfect Time SHP, that is really a passion. That is a coaching and consulting firm, and I really just focus on leadership development. I look at those career professionals as well as entrepreneurs. If you are in need of a leadership development coach, if you just need some steps, some guidance, some how-tos on getting your entrepreneur journey started, if you want to up-level your career, certainly reach out to me. Also, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to connect with others that are all across the United States and beyond, and also be highlighted and featured in our Grind Entrepreneur Network Spotlight each month, definitely reach out to SharonHPorter.com, and I would love to connect and collaborate with you so that we can definitely support your efforts and make sure that you get the results that you want in your business.
Shirley Liu has been in the financial services industry for over 20 years and is committed to securing your financial future through sound financial planning, education, and even training for those who want to start a career in financial services. Through innovative retirement, savings, and educational programs powered by First Financial Security Incorporated, Shirley Liu and her team prepare you to thrive with your money. Accredited by the BBB, Shirley Liu Finance is safe and sound investing.
And we are back with Education First. Again, my name is Desmond Williams, and as always, I'm enthused and honored to be here. I wanted to have a conversation about Dr. Beverly Tatum's Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria. It is an excellent book. I think it's a book that certainly people who work in schools, whether you be school leaders or teachers, should definitely read. But this is a reissue from her original publishing in 1995, and it discusses race and racial identity in schools and in school settings. The new issue of the book is absolutely excellent to the degree that she has about a 114-page prologue to the book, where she gives us kind of a social historical context of where we are now, talking about everything from the shooting of Tamir Rice and Trayvon Martin, and some of the police brutality that was highlighted in 2014 and 2015. And that context is given to help readers understand that race is still an issue, and that it is a systemic issue that permeates all areas of human activity, but particularly in education. Dr. Tatum is, I've read the book, and I've studied her on YouTube, and she is absolutely amazing at making conversations about race a lot less awkward, I think is the best way to put it, and really diffusing some of the tension that can come up in a room when different groups of people are starting to try to talk about race. She has an excellent TED Talk called Am I Black Because I Drink Chocolate Milk? And it's the story of her son coming to her, and essentially race came up. And I think he was about 5 or 6 when that conversation happened. But one of his classmates who was white said to him, you're darker than us because you drink chocolate milk.
Wow.
So that was the beginning of a conversation of her helping her son kind of navigate this issue of space, but also as she herself talks a lot about her background and being one of few Black people in her classes when she was really up until she went to college. It was a watershed moment for her, to the degree that she was thinking about how could she help teachers and help school leaders also navigate those spaces so that they could help children be racially literate, I think is the best way to put it.
Absolutely. So Desmond, why do you think that, because so many times people, when you say you are the first or one of a few Black or African American, people feel some kind of way about that. You know, and sometimes the platform, people don't want to use that as a platform because of maybe the negative or the backlash. And it sounds like, and tell us the title one more time of the book.
Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria?
And I've not read this book, and I've got to read it now. But why do you think when individuals do say that, you know, I'm one or the first, because I think we have several firsts at this table that have done something as an African American,
Right.
And it's not always looked at positively. You know, people, I guess, say you're using the race card. I've heard. What are your thoughts on that?
She actually, that's a point of emphasis on the book, is groups of people who are described as minorities when they are one of the very few. They're looked upon as being the expert and the spokesman for everyone
Right.
of their race, as if that particular person is an expert on if macaroni or cheese is macaroni and cheese as a side, or is it a whole meal? Like, what do your people think about that? But I think to answer your question more directly is people who are considered to be minorities are not, we're just looked upon as being a monolith. So if you as a group are a monolith, then it's obvious that you speak for all 40 million African Americans in the country, or whatever the case may be, in terms of your identity, whether it be a racial identity or whether it be a gender identity, a gender identity. If you are the only Democrat at a cocktail party full of Republicans, then the conversation is, well, what do the Democrats think about this?
Absolutely.
But she does a really good job of, in the book, discussing how do teachers make sure and how do school leaders make sure that minority groups within a particular school community do not feel as though because they are quote unquote minorities that they have to answer for everything that happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why do you think groups of people are together, such as the title suggests?
Yeah, the hashtag answer for that is because groups of people are looking to find and identify with a racial identity. And whether you be a group of high school kids who are the minority, or whether you be in undergrad, or whether you be in a workplace, that identity characteristic that people most identify you with is ultimately how you end up viewing yourself. So I remember being in undergrad at Howard University, and in the cafeteria, all of the football players sat together. And they identified as being football players, even though there were tons of people with 4.0 GPAs. You didn't get identified as a person with a 4.0 GPA. You were a group of people from Detroit, or you were on a basketball team, or you were on a football team. So that same dynamic plays out racially in our schools. And the conversation is, how do we make those groups of students feel comfortable? And how do we make sure that we're helping other students who are the quote unquote majority not microaggress against those
Now,
groups
do
of
you
people?
all see that in your schools or in your spaces that you've been in? Do you see groups like groups always together? And do you try to deter that, or do you encourage that in your spaces where you are now currently, or where you've been?
I think many times children are looking for a place to belong. And so there's some cultural aspects to it as well. As a school principal, I think it's really important for us to try and teach children not just the value of being different, but also finding common grounds to be able to have conversations with each other, so that there is that understanding and thoughtfulness when there are times that there is discord within the groups.
And I think it's a great way to socially connect students, build those relationships, and we'll talk in just a few minutes about school transformation, and that is definitely a part of it. When you talk about race in education, I recall when I was a principal, I would do things such as Mix It Up Day, making sure that you had a little maybe conversation tent on the table in the cafeteria, and have kids to go in and mix it up so that they could get to know each other, get to know about each other's culture. And that is so important that we do that as adults, and also we pass that on to the students that we're serving within the schools.
Exactly.
I think educators, just in curriculum alone, have to make sure that they show their students mirrors. And as an English teacher, you know, having books that represent Hispanics and African Americans and women and all that other thing. So that alone just helps to for them to find their affinity of identity within even the curriculum that they're learning, and then that spills over to the cafeteria.
But you know, we as adults, we're talking about students, but I think before we even came on camera, we were talking about creature of habits, right?
Yes.
And you normally just go to what you're familiar with.
Yes.
And we do have to help students, though, break out of that. And I know me as a 30 introvert, that was me all the time. But in recent years, I've pushed myself so that when I walk in the room, I'm not heading to that person I know. I'm going to find that person that I don't know. But that's a process. And we also have to help our students get through that process, because they will go straight to what's familiar to them.
Yeah, I think giving more context to the book, we are, as a nation, more tribal than ever. And your point, Dr. Sharon, about us being a lot more, being focused on what's familiar to us. We want to make sure in our schools that when you see this group of students who are into comic books or whatever the case may be, that they don't feel that they're forced to be together because they're not allowed, or they're being shunned away from other groups or other things that they could be interested in, or other groups of people that they may want to interact with. I think that's super important.
Wow. Well, thank you, Desmond, for that topic. I tell the book, the title of the book one more time, and we will definitely put the link on the website, urbanstylemedia.com. So tell them the title one more time.
Dr. Beverly Tatum. It is Why Are All the Black Children Sitting Together in the Cafeteria?
Okay, thank you. And that leads us right to school transformation with Dr. Essie McKoy.
Thank you so very much once again. And Desmond, thank you for actually sharing that topic with us, because it is important. And when we talk about school transformation, we have to consider race. You know, it's something that we're uncomfortable with at times, something we do not want to talk about, but it's so very important. So once again, my book is The Heart of School Transformation, my journey into transforming urban schools. And I've been very fortunate, very blessed to have taken the journey that I've taken. 30 years in the field of education, still in education, higher education at this point in time. So definitely my book is an easy read. You can go to my website, dressiespeaks.com, and make the purchase. And definitely I talk about my early beginnings, because for me, it was an area that I wanted kids to know. So that is one of the profound points in the book, where I talk about the fact that I grew up from very humble beginnings, so that kids can realize I didn't arrive to where I am today by not going through this journey. It took the challenges that I encountered in my life in order to get to where I am. And that's so important that kids can relate to that and identify with that. And then I go into talking about the era of accountability. When I first became a principal many years ago, and I was in a school as an administrator for 20 years, serving as assistant principal, executive director of a school. And definitely what happened in my course of work, even before I went into school administration, I was in a highly impacted alternative middle school, and that actually changed my life in the course of my career, because I knew that I had a passion to work with kids who needed us the most and who really needed a voice, and I wanted to be that voice. I wanted to go into those schools that nobody wanted to go into. You know, the truth be known, nobody wanted to go into those schools, those challenging schools. When you think about challenging schools, you're talking about schools that have every acronym that you can possibly think of, starting with 100% free and reduced lunch, high minority student population, low parental involvement, lack of resources in high crime areas. Some of the schools might even have gangs in them, safety issues. So you're talking about a myriad of problems. And in my book, I really focus on how do you do that as a leader. You cannot go into a school and leave any stone unturned. You must look at every single aspect. And I talk about being a whole educator. We have to make sure that we do address all the needs of educators. We have to address the needs of all students and also the school community. So you're talking about social, emotional, psychological, environmental. You have kids. I remember when I first became a principal, I was excited about that process. The media was there the first day of school, and this child came up to me and asked me, did I have anything that he could eat, and also for his brother. Can you imagine going through that journey, that experience? So definitely I give very practical strategies in my book about how you go about transforming schools. Those skills, those abilities, being an effective leader. Definitely if you get my book, you will read about all those strategies. But once again, looking at the culture of the school, every single school that I went into, I always looked at the culture of the school. I always looked at the test data. I always had a plan in place, and you have to modify and tweak that plan based on the needs of the school, because reading things on paper and actually going into the school and seeing the day-to-day operation, the culture of the school is totally different. You have to live it, you have to breathe it, you have to be in there, and you have to say, you know, these educators that are working on behalf of the kids in that school? How can I extend their capacity? How can I continue to help them to grow and develop? So you have to look at professional development. You have to look at community engagement. You have to look at all budgets. I've had school budgets as much as $2.6 million, one school improvement grant that was early on in one school. So taking those funds and utilizing and maximizing those funds in order to impact the schools. I go back to the first school where I became a principal. I was there 7.5 years. Once again, all the acronyms. And I don't like to use the terminology at risk. I don't use it, so I say at promise. Our kids are at promise. They can accomplish anything. They can do anything. We have to have the right leaders, right educators in place in order to make sure that we do create schools that we can say they have been transformed. Going back to the first school, I recall 813 kids in there. Once again, 100% free and reduced lunch, high crime area. When I first went into the school, it was no growth. When I left the school, it exceeded expected growth. We became a signature school. And people would always ask me, how in the heck did you do that? I said it took everybody within the school, everybody. When I say whole educator, I'm talking about whole educator. I have to continue also, I do want to add, I have to continue to expand my abilities and skills. So I continue to learn. I went back to school. I went to leadership programs. Learning never stops. If you're passionate about what you do, you're going to engage and invest in yourself. And that is so critical for educators today. So that school became a signature school. The second school I went into, it was a school improvement grant, so it was going to, quote unquote, be taken over by the government. And I was asked to go into that school because of all the work I had done at the first school. That school also became a signature school, from no growth to exceeding expected growth. And those educators out there listening, when we talk about EVOS index, you're talking about, when I walked into school, it was a minus 3.32. When I left the school, it was a plus 2.24. So making an impact on that school. And then the last school that I went into was a middle school, and I actually retired from that school. But when I walked in the door, I had never really seen an EVOS index so significant in the negative. It was a minus 8.99. When I left, it was a minus 4.27. So we had impacted that by a plus 4.72.
Wow.
And I know that school is on its way.
Yeah.
I can tell you, according to all the research, there's so much information out there about school transformation. But I can tell you that it takes anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and sometimes even more, based on how highly impacted that school is in order to really transform that school. So that is critical. Once again, we need to make sure that we are comprehensive in our approach. It would be nice if you can go into a school and just be an instructional leader, but guess what? You cannot. You have to be everything.
Everything.
An instructional leader, you have to look at the culture, you have to be an HR person, making sure you get the right people in the right places, looking at the programs, the initiatives, the community engagement, just everything about that school in order to truly transform the school that you desire to transform.
Well, Dr. McKoy, I know we have some questions, so your time is almost up. So I wanted to ask, in through all this school transformation, parent engagement, community involvement, huge.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you did to get your parents on board? Because as you said, it takes everybody.
Right. So that's interesting because all three schools had a quote unquote PTA, but guess who ran the PTA?
Wow.
The educators in the building. And I said something was wrong with that. So initially you have to connect to people and even get parents to come and just meet with you. What are you good at? And ask them to come to the school in order to build that. Once one parent sees another parent coming through that door and investing in that school, they're going to continue to invest and it's going to grow from there. I have always been a person to seek out community people. The mayor's office got involved. They built a community garden. We had universities and colleges just looking at the businesses within the content of that school community, getting them involved. I did not mind asking. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Leaders must not be afraid to go out and ask for what they need and make it known to those people that are in that community.
I love it. Anybody
Amen.
else? Question for Sharon?
I wish I had you, Doc, when I first became a principal, because to your point about being an instructional leader, what often happens is people become principals because they were really, really good teachers. And they have to learn how to be principals.
Yes.
And I found out that the hard way.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Essie McKoy, thank you so much. I cannot wait for us to continue our conversation each month. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with 2 more dynamic educational topics when we return. We'll be right back.
Shirley Liu has been in the financial services industry for over 20 years and is committed to securing your financial future through sound financial planning, education, and even training for those who want to start a career in financial services. Through innovative retirement, savings, and educational programs powered by First Financial Security Incorporated, Shirley Liu and her team prepare you to thrive with your money. Accredited by the BBB, Shirley Liu Finance is safe and sound investing.
So welcome back, and I just know that if I was at home watching right now, I would just be extremely excited about the possibility of school transformation, but also like building off of your topic where you talk about identity, and that just means so much, especially in the space of equity. And so the topic that I am very passionate about is social justice, but also dismantling disparate systems. And I know in that I've written a book about the school to prison pipeline. And I know there are some people out there, I've read an article like, it's a myth and all these other things, but when we're investing more money into the penal system than we are into educating students, when you're spending $1,000 a year per pupil, but you're spending $17,000 a year per prisoner,
wow,
that's an issue. And one of the things that I touch on in my book, and I would really love to hear your feedback on, is that starting in the 3rd grade, our students start to get tested. Based on those reading test scores, that's how they project how many prisons they are going to need in the future. So if you tell me that there is not a school to prison pipeline, I would beg to differ. One of the main things that I talk about in my book is what an educator can do from the classroom without a policy, without funds, and really it's just a shift in the mindset and how we're dealing with discipline. So I would really like to ask you, in some of the schools you've been in, or what are some things that you have done to empower educators to not seek out, the building administrator to be the disciplinarian? How are you helping teachers with classroom management? Because that is the first line of defense to dismantle the school to prison pipeline, as I speak about in my book.
Of course, there are different programs that you can embed into your school. I can recall 2 of the schools that I led, actually 3. We implemented positive behavior intervention support. Yes, PBIS is what we call it in the state of North Carolina. And so it gave the kids an opportunity to really reflect on their behavior, and also gave educators an opportunity to see kids in a different light. We had a PBIS committee where we talked about some of the strategies and techniques and reflected on the things that we had implemented. So any program, any initiative that you do implement, you need to start slow and then reflect on it and think about how you can tweak it to make that better before you implement the second phase. So PBIS is definitely one positive behavior program that you can implement in a school.
Yeah.
So Dr. Essie, that leads me to a really great thought about what you just talked about with school transformation. She talked about there's a 3 to 5 year time span in order to see some real change. And so what that really looks like is, first there has to be an initialization of a thought or a project. Then it becomes implemented. Then it goes into institutionalization. That phase and no spot of that process is like this is going to take a year, that's going to take a year. Sometimes you move from implementation back into the initialization, because it has to be very fluid. And so I really appreciate you bringing that out, because it does take time, and we're waiting on Superman. We think something's going to happen tomorrow, and that's one of the things we talk about in the book, is that really you just have to start somewhere. So I would love to hear where do you guys start when you think about school discipline and dismantling disparate systems?
For me, I'm going to say, when I was principal, one of the things that you have to make teachers, your staff, aware, first of all those options, because they will automatically send them to the principal's office as a first. You have to teach them. You have to show them there are other ways, alternative ways. Even when they want a child suspended for a non-suspendable offense. It's a hard thing as a school leader, and I know you can attest, you are the sitting principal on this panel, that it's hard to show staff that, because they are angry, they want that child out of there. Yes, they will. Absolutely. So, and I would definitely, because it's been quite a few years now since I've been a building principal, but I remember that was one of the hardest things, and I would love to hear you, Dr. Anna, as a school principal now, what do you do to help that? Because I know restorative practice is a part of our school district now. So what do you think?
So it is multifaceted, and one of the first things that I bring to the table when I have a teacher that is requesting suspension or is requesting discipline, my first response is to find out exactly what is going on, because the issue is, again, multifaceted. There are different sides to every story.
Yes.
And I always say,
that's right.
and I always keep in mind who is the adult and who is the child, and every opportunity that we have to teach children to make those better choices is critical for us, because if we don't address the root cause of the problem, we will continue to have these issues. And the other piece to this puzzle is, do we know the children that we are working with? Are we taking into consideration where they are coming from and what they are bringing to the school, and really encouraging teachers to really think about the behavior and look for those root causes rather than being reactive, looking at being proactive, knowing that this child is coming to our school, knowing that there's some history there, and preparing them for the day as they walk in the door, and saying, okay, so are you going to have a 5-star kind of day? What are you going to be doing today to make that happen, so that you're preparing children for the day? And then when they do make those mistakes, recognize that and teach them that, you know what, we make mistakes, and we're going to learn from these mistakes, and what are we going to do differently? And if they don't know, then our place is to teach them what their options are and what they can do differently. I was also a middle school principal, and this was critical to work with these young adults in our middle schools. Our middle schools are in desperate need right now for leaders that desperately understand them and can lead them. So in terms of discipline, for me, it's, if you have to discipline a child, you have not done your work. You do not know your child, you have not put things in place to assure that children are successful in the classroom and in the school.
So what I'm hearing, real quick, before I segue to you, is and you guys keep seeing Desmond doing that. These are symbols that I did in my classroom to help build relationship, and it means like me and you share a common ground, and if I snap, it's like I'm giving you your props. So really what I hear you saying is relationships should be the foundation upon which we start to dismantle a school to prison pipeline and discipline. So I would really love to hear from you. How do you build relationships in order to help dismantle some of these things?
I have a lot going on right now. But I think in terms of answering the question about relationships, you're being your authentic self as an adult in the building, and you can build a relationship with everyone that is functional and constructive. And that particular child or a particular child may not want to come to you when they have a serious issue, but if everyone is working to be their authentic selves, that child will go to someone. And I think when we look at restorative justice, and when we look at discipline, and when we look at the school to prison pipeline, the behavior, any behavior program is probably going to meet the needs of about 85 to 90% of the children in your building. And from my perspective, that is a high number. Our quote unquote outliers, we need to be thinking out of the box for those students. So if we are a school that is a PBIS school or a school that uses responsive classroom, you're not either of those schools. You are a school that is working to meet children's needs, and you're using PBIS or you're using responsive classroom. But if responsive classroom does not work for this particular child or this particular group of children, then we will use whatever means necessary. And it may not have a name with a training or a book that comes along with it. I think that that has always been my advice to new principals. You are not a school that's using Eureka Math. You're not a school that's using Saxon Math. Right. You are a school that's teaching students to be mathematical geniuses. And if Eureka works, that's great. But what are we going to do if it doesn't work? The other point that I want to make really quickly is this whole idea of what are we doing in terms of our pedagogy and content. That is the first line of defense to keep children engaged in what's happening in the classroom. We all know, as experienced educators, there are things that happen in classrooms where we have behavior issues that have nothing to do with pedagogy, have nothing to do with what happens in the walls of the schools. That's another issue, but I think as teachers, are we working to be the best educators we can be?
So as we get ready to kind of move into another conversation, I do want to say that within my book, one of the things you talked about were the outliers. And so there's really a detailed plan of how you can assign an adult advocate to every single child in your building, so you can catch those children, so that everybody has a person that they can go to for support, for love, and for nurturing, so that we can dismantle the school to prison pipeline and create a school to success pipeline.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. Dr. Anna, what do you have for us?
Well, my area of interest, which includes bilingual education and educating second language learners, but I think the deeper issue is how do we educate these children? And when we do find educators that are going to be in the trenches day to day with our children, how do we develop them to be their best selves? So I would like for us to talk about teacher leadership, how we can impact their leadership so that we can grow leaders into administration and into the community, educating our children. And there's 3 areas that impact teacher leadership. They are technological issues, cultural and political systems at play at our schools. So I would like for us to talk about a little bit in each area. So the technological systems are those systems that tell us how to do our work day to day, the systems in place. The political systems are issues of power within our schools. And then the cultural systems, which is how do we do the work that we do and what do we believe in for our children. My research was based on formal and informal teacher networks. I was an instructional coach at the time, and I would go to all these trainings, and the district wanted us to do all these things, and there was no sustainability. And so my question was, when I would work with teachers trying to implement change in schools, I would notice that those teachers that were impacting the change were not necessarily the ones in power in the school. So I started looking at informal teacher networks and trying to identify those leaders within the school that do not hold formal leadership positions that are conferred on them through being teacher leaders, the lead teacher, or being the instructional coach, and thinking about how can we harness these leaders that are working in the background to impact student achievement and sustain change. In my research, I did a mixed methods methodology. I did interviews, but I also gathered data. And qualitative data, yes. And so bottom line, what really impacted the work of teacher leaders was the principal in the school and those relationships that occur, and teachers feeling that principal understands what it is that I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and is trying to keep the crazy out of our school with all of the demands that are placed on teachers from so many areas. Again, those cultural demands, those political demands, those technological demands. How do I educate children well? And the change that is required is really meaningful and not just a compliance that adds more work to the
you know, the
teachers.
First thing I would think of, first of all, is knowing that leadership is not title, it's not position, that it is influence, and anyone in any position or level can be a leader. And so that's the first thing, and especially when I am talking with my principals, because right now my work consists of school leaders, but I'm helping them with their teachers. So it is important that building leaders give opportunities for teachers to lead in whatever capacity. You mentioned it could be a team leader, it could be a department chair, or it could just be someone that takes initiative to fill the gap for whatever is needed in that building. And so as building leaders, it is important that we help our teacher leaders develop, because not all teacher leaders want to become administrators, and that's the second thing that we need to be aware of as school leaders. You can't push people. You may see things in individuals, but not everybody wants that. And if they do, or they'll want it in time, basically. But grow them where they are. Make them the best teacher in that building, the best teacher leader, versus trying to push them into administration. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think about having been in a similar position as a teacher where I thought I was a really good educator, but did not have a lot of voice in a particular school that I was working at. I think it's important for principals and school leaders to give teachers a platform to show and share their expertise. And that goes a long way in giving teachers voice, to the degree that, you know, I have this amount of expertise to share, and there are 25 other teachers in a building who have no idea of it, or they may have heard of it, but they don't actually get to see it because they're with their own groups of children. I think that capacity, building that capacity to share within our own buildings is really important. And in as much as we can get our teachers to conferences where they can share their information, share their knowledge, share their expertise, but then bring other information and other expertise back to the building. I think those are really important points, so that essentially you don't have this bottleneck where you have this great expertise in a building and the children have it and no one else. You know?
And I agree to what you said, Dr. Sharon, that is, leadership is not the title. And we have to really practice what we preach. And they have to see us modeling what we expect of them. If you say go back and extend your capacity, hone your skills, hone your abilities, go back and work on your degrees, advanced degrees, then guess what? You need to be doing that as a leader in that building. You know, you can't articulate to them what you don't expect of yourself. So I think that is a first important step for any leader who goes into a school, especially these schools that are highly impacted. And it calls for us to really look at every single person in that school, looking at the professional development plan, looking at what professional development opportunities are you going to bring to the staff. And that was the one thing. Don't get this wrong, and I want to say this so clearly, because when you are in schools that are challenging, there is a lot of work to be done. And what is our role in that is to align everything that we're doing within that school. We must find alignment. People cannot see that you're doing one thing here, one thing there, and expecting a totally different outcome. So the alignment of programs and initiatives, but also the professional development piece, they have to see how it's going to directly impact that classroom and impact that school in order for it to be effective.
Dr. Addis, part of what I'm doing now, since I've left administration and being an assistant principal, is I'm looking at ways to increase teacher leadership capacity within our system, and that means, like you talked about, like not and part of the questions that I'm asking educators is, what are some things that we could do, dream big? What doesn't have a title yet? Or, what can we do? And then that balance between like the influence, but also you have to have the backing of the principal in order to be able to leverage your teacher leadership.
Right.
But then not only that, like Dr. Sharon said, some teachers don't want to be teacher leaders, and that's okay. But every teacher, we want to be a great teacher.
Right.
But there is a difference between a teacher leader and a great teacher.
Absolutely.
So kind of bridging that gap, and it's really been exciting working with CCSSO, the Chief Council of State Schools officers, on creating a plan, a nationwide plan on like how do we increase teacher leadership capacity so that teachers are leading. I think one of the best schools I've ever been in was a middle school where my principal never had to get up and give professional development. We gave professional development. We ran our chairs.
Absolutely.
We had shared leadership and distributed leadership where that was our school. So it didn't matter that we had went through 7 principals in 2 years.
Right.
We were the constant, and we were going to make sure that we were taking care of our own. And I think that one of the most powerful teacher leadership programs I've ever seen is where you're kind of just doing it yourself. It's very grassroots, like you talked about. There's no titles. There's just this, and everybody is influencing each other and holding each other accountable. So
Right, and you're touching on the technological systems in place, because currently what is happening in our school districts, everything is top down. And so if you're really looking at grassroots change, you have to start from the bottom up. You've got to start bottom up, and also to promote that sustainability. And it doesn't matter what is happening around you, if you're starting at the bottom and you're looking at the data and you're looking at a common purpose, educating kids well, then it happens. The leaders, there's leadership whether you're the teacher in the classroom, because you are the leader in the classroom, and recognizing that and teaching teachers how to be that, because sometimes they don't really know. And I've really been trying to develop my lead teachers, and so I've turned over rolling agendas to them, but yet I meet with them before we have our collaboration meetings. We go through the rolling agenda, we make sure that all the pieces are in place so that then they can be successful when they're having these conversations and they're leading the conversation. Yet those rolling agendas are really built from the conversations they are having with their colleagues at their grade level. So they have these conversations about what is needed for their grade level, looking at that student data, looking at what students need, down to the name, because those numbers have names. And if we do not look at names, we will not move those numbers. So we look at the data, we look at the names, we make sure it's in our agenda for discussion, and then we stick to it, and we always have next steps. So that really promotes that leadership, because they can't fail. Those pieces are in place, then we come back and we reevaluate, reassess what we've done, and we continue to move forward.
So it sounds like you've identified that, you can't come at your teachers like kids. And I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls when we think about teacher leadership is we're trying to come at adults with pedagogy when we need to come at them with andragogy. And there are certain things that adult learners just need. And they're not a whole lot different. Like that, none of that sit and get. They need engagement. That we have to model as leaders, as instructional leaders, what we want them to do in the classroom. And too often, it starts a lot of times with the professional learning, and we're doing it in this sit and get model that we would be very upset if we saw their classroom and saw their kids sitting there taking notes. Oh my God, let's get you some PD, But then that's what we're giving them. So we have to model and be that change that we want to see in our teachers.
To that point, which goes back to my other point about being a great teacher and then becoming a principal, you have to learn as a school leader, how am I delivering professional development? Because you'll have 5 or 6 days on your calendar of professional development, and 2 days before those children don't have school, you're working on a PowerPoint presentation for your teachers. So I think, getting principals together, getting assistant principals together and teaching them, this is how you want to think about how you are modeling and how you're giving that off. Because if your PD is sit and get, then your teachers will go back to the classroom and they will deliver more sit and get.
They want to hear more from the teachers than they do you. So when I was an assistant principal, I would remember what I saw in walkthroughs, and I say, you know, hey, Dr. Sharon, I saw you doing a really great thing in your class. How would you feel about giving a little mini lesson? Nothing big, I'll help you with it, to our staff, because I would love to see that pocket of excellence be permeated through the building. And so we have to do more of that as leaders too, is getting our teachers in front of each other, because they respect and want to hear from each other. They hear from you all the time.
Exactly.
They want to hear from their peers. It's like when you allow students to stand in front of the classroom and give a presentation. The kids are really excited. You know, they hear from you all the time.
Exactly.
So.
If I could make a shameless plug, one of the books that helped me most as a budding principal was John Maxwell's The 5 Levels of Leadership.
Absolutely.
And it really helped me think about what kind of a human being I wanted to be in my building. But it also helped me with other administrators in my building get a sense of why I was trying to build teachers and why I was trying to build people. I had an assistant principal who thought, Desmond, you're always talking to teachers. And I would say yes, because you know this is the human element of what it means to build people. And when you build people, you build your teachers, and then your teachers ultimately build children. But that book changed my life in terms of having the language that I needed to really help everyone understand this whole idea of building capacity and building people in your
Sounds like you were a servant leader.
Yes. Absolutely. And that really is a great segue into principal preparation, leadership development for basically assistant principals, knowing, first of all, that all school districts actually don't have assistant principals. Some smaller school districts, there are actually teachers who go from teacher to principal, which is another research area that I am interested in pursuing. But for the sake of my current research, it is on building the development of assistant principals. And that is the one thing that all of us have in common. We've all been assistant principals. And so my question really is, what is the onus of the supervising principal in developing their assistant principal? Because sometimes the will may be there, but the skill may not. And so that is a problem. In my book, Next in Line to Lead, The Voice of the Assistant Principal, is what we talk about, because not every principal, unfortunately, have the skill to develop others. And so, in your opinion, as you were growing as a leader, how did your principal really help you inform your leadership?
I think for me, I had an opportunity to work with a high number of assistant principals, and they all, just about all of them, became principals. And I sort of reflect back on that journey, and I know the assistant principals didn't have as many meetings as I had. They didn't get as much professional development. They didn't get to go to conferences and lead in different venues. However, I made sure as a school principal, sitting school principal, that I went back to that school and I shared every single thing. And we had dialogue about certain topics. And I asked them, what are we currently doing? What is it that you don't know? What do you need more of? So it was a fluid conversation. It was a good rapport with them, but they all became, just about every single one of them became principals. So I think I did a great job in preparing them for the principalship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so important. And I definitely want to say it's not only the principal's responsibility, but truly they have a huge responsibility, as they are the day-to-day supervisor in the lives of those assistant principals. So what about you? Do you have an assistant principal currently?
I do not currently have an assistant principal. However, I have had experience in developing people into the principalship, and as a principal, it's critical that we make our thinking very visible and clear and transparent to those that are hoping to come into the principalship. Really giving them time to just ask you questions and why decisions are being made in a certain way, and how to guide them, and what are those things that are going to be not only non-negotiables but critical to making those decisions as a principal because you're impacting children's lives. You're impacting adult leaders and teachers in your classroom, in your school. And the assistant principal cannot just be the one that gets all the grunt work, because I know that happens so much. And as principals, we're trying to be the instructional leaders, but we have to keep in mind that those assistant principals also need to be supported into that instructional leadership position.
I love it. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Move on?
the best schools, in my opinion, are schools where people are working to build people. And I remember, and we talked about this when I began teaching. My first principal, I think it was it was after Columbus Day, but it was before November, and he called me into his office and he said, "You want to be a principal?" And I was 24 years old, and I was still trying to figure out who was supposed to be taking out my trash. And he asked me if I wanted to be a principal. But what he said to me was, "I want you to come to a meeting with me on a Saturday," and it was a bunch of principals just getting together to hang out and talk. And that was life-changing. And it was a room full of black men watching college football and hanging out and sharing a few war stories about what was happening in their building. But my larger point is the people aspect of it is so important. And I think when teachers or assistant principals in this case believe that the leadership in the building has their best interest at heart and can help develop them, then you have something there, because that can only help but trickle down to your children. So shout out to Timothy Williams.
I love it.
I think what I understood when I first became an assistant principal was that my job was to assist the principal. And so whatever the dynamic between us was, it was my position when I got out there in front of the people, in front of our community, to always support this person, no matter what level of support that I was getting or not getting from them. I luckily had some people in my life who have been principals, superintendents from other districts, who I could seek out when I needed that support. But I always often worried about my other colleagues who I knew didn't have that extended network and were really struggling. And I remembered thinking, if I didn't have this informal mentorship of network of people who walked this walk before, I would really have struggled. So what I did was I created a book club for all the assistant principals in my district, or in not just in my district, but in our America's district, because our system is worldwide. And we read, if you don't feed the teachers, they will eat the students. And this book was really transformative. It's really light and fun, but it really helped us. And we built our own network and became our own support system, because that role of an assistant principal is hard, and it's lonely. You go from being a teacher leader where everybody, and then you become one of them.
Yes.
So you go from one of us to one of them,
Right.
and the dark side. So I had written an article about that struggle in my first semester.
Yeah.
But I think the informal networks were very important to me. But then also, if you see that there's something that's not in existence, what are you going to do to create it?
Yeah.
You can be the change agent in your own school system. That I don't have support, so what can I do to support the others? How can I bring these APs together and really work together to support each other? Because we're in this walk together.
Absolutely. Guys, I tell you what, dynamic, robust conversation. Our very first Education First. Yes! We are excited. We are grateful that you have joined us. We will be here every month talking about topics that you care about as far as educators. Again, Desmond Williams. Desmond, please give them a contact information for you, social media.
If you need to reach me, you can find me at www.nylinka.org. That's NYLINKA, or you can find me on Twitter at Nylinka. Okay,
very good. And Kelisa?
So I am online at www.kelisawing.com. That's KELISAWING.com. Also on Twitter at Kelisa_L2Teach. So I'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
And since I'm in the school setting, you can certainly reach me at Cesar Chavez Dual Spanish Immersion School here in Hyattsville, Maryland.
And definitely my website is www.dressiespeaks.com. You can find all my social media platforms linked on my website. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So check me out and buy my book. Thank you.
Awesome. And guys, all of these wonderful people, all of their links are on the I Am Dr. Sharon Show website. It is iamdrsharonshow.com. And please follow me across all social media platforms at I Am Dr. Sharon, and that is Dr. Sharon. This has been a blast. Thank you, my co-hosts. We get to do it again in January. We'll let you know which Sunday it will be. So thank you guys for joining us. We are authors, we are bloggers, we are principals, but it is education first.
What keeps entrepreneurs from connecting and collaborating is trust. If you've never collaborated and saw the benefits of collaboration, then you don't know that you need to. If there is individuals who have strengths that you don't have, and you complement each other, you have those thought partners, those accountability partners that you really can work with well together, the outcome is just amazing. I have been in 5 collaboration books. One of the benefits for me is the time piece, because when you're writing your own book, it does take time. Then secondly, you are opened up to so many more people than you would ever do by yourself. Just the benefit of expanding your reach and your circle is also a benefit in collaboration. I really feel that every entrepreneur needs a book because it helps validate what you're doing. You do the work, you are out there making money off of what you're doing. I like to know what it is that you're doing as an entrepreneur. Tell us your story. Everyone has a story, which is why I highlight entrepreneurs in the Grind Entrepreneur Network, because I am giving them a question of the day. They are detailing their questions and their responses, and you're getting to know who that entrepreneur is. And so with a book, you're able to do that. Your audience, your clients, your customers, they're able to see who you are as a person and not just as that CEO or that boss that you are of your business. The mission of the Grind Entrepreneur Network is really quite simple. It is to support, connect, develop, and highlight entrepreneurs. The network is just amazing. And so I'm really so glad for that, because when I need services done, I go to my network to see who I can invest in. You know, I really want to do something to help support and highlight entrepreneurs who are on their grind. And that's really how the Grind Entrepreneur Network was born. So Perfect Time SHP, that is really a passion. That is a coaching and consulting firm, and I really just focus on leadership development. I look at those career professionals as well as entrepreneurs. If you are in need of a leadership development coach, if you just need some steps, some guidance, some how-tos on getting your entrepreneur journey started, if you want to up-level your career, certainly reach out to me. Also, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to connect with others that are all across the United States and beyond, and also be highlighted and featured in our Grind Entrepreneur Network Spotlight each month, definitely reach out to SharonHporter.com, and I would love to connect and collaborate with you so that we can definitely support your efforts and make sure that you get the results that you want in your business.
Shirley Liu has been in the financial services industry for over 20 years and is committed to securing your financial future through sound financial planning, education, and even training for those who want to start a career in financial services. Through innovative retirement, savings, and educational programs powered by First Financial Security Incorporated, Shirley Liu and her team prepare you to thrive with your money. Accredited by the BBB, Shirley Liu Finance is safe and sound investing.